Uvarach. Today we are catching up, for those that missed it on Shabbos, the 8th day of the month of Iyar, and we are learning Maseches Shekalim, Daf Chaf Aleph Amud Beis. We are almost at the end of Maseches Shekalim, considerably shorter Masechta than Maseches Pesachim, and we are starting Yoma, please God, on this Wednesday. This Wednesday is our first day of Maseches Yoma, so get ready for, please God, another very exciting Maseches. Only 4 more days left of Maseches Shekalim, so if you have not caught up, this would be a good opportunity to make sure that you do. We're going to copy the link here so that Chavra will be able to follow along. And there we go. Okay. Says the Gemara, bottom of Daf Chaf Amud Beis, 3 lines from the bottom of the page, where the Gemara tells us, quoting from the end of the Mishnah that we had seen before, Kohen Gadol Shemeis, with regards to the Kohen Gadol that dies, the Mishnah told us machlokes between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon was of the opinion that one of the dinim that the Beis Din made was that when a Kohen Gadol dies, that his mincha, his Asher Seifa, that is brought that day and subsequently until they make another Kohen Gadol, that comes from public funding, and Rabbi Yehuda was of the opinion that it should come from the estate, it should come from the Yarshim. Says the Gemara asking the following question: Rabbi Bar Memel Bai. Says Rabbi Ba, the son of Memel, he asked the following question: Rabbi Shimon seems to have switched his opinion. Now, there's a discussion in the Achronim exactly where the questioner, meaning Rabbi Bar Memel, was he learning Maseches Shekalim when he asked this question? Was he learning Maseches Menachos when he asked that question? Because the question comes up in Menachos, it's quoted here, but it seems to be that it is lifted from Menachos, at least from the next word, Taman, there, meaning there in Maseches Shekalim. So that's where he's asking from, meaning he's learning Menachos and he's asking in Shekalim. Taman, there, Amar, he said, Rabbi Shimon said, Mishel Yoshim, that's the Mishnah. Vehacha Amar, and here, meaning here in Menachos, Amar Mishel Tzibur. Meaning, either way you want to slice it, Rabbi Shimon in one place says that the Yoshim pay for it, in another place he says that the Tzibur pays for it. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Chia, says Rabbi Chia Bar Ba, he's not asking a good question, it's a good question. Alternatively, he's not asking a good question. Is it rhetorical or is it a support to his reading it? But also Rabbi Yaakov Bar Acha comes along with Rabbi Yaakov Bar Acha and he wants to explain what with this question. It's a good question, or maybe it's not a good question, but either way, the resolution of it is as follows. He says the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Dvar Torah shedehei ba min hatzibur. The halacha is that it should come from the tzibur, meaning the halacha mid'oraisa is that it should come from the tzibur. And we're going to skip the parentheses at the moment, and then we'll come back and see them again. But skipping the parentheses, shedehei ba min hatzibur. And then, Ayisi Omer, I would say, what should happen? Yigvula. That they should raise money, meaning anytime that you have a Kohen Gadol that does, and now there is not enough, meaning and nobody's bringing the Asher Seifa. The Asher Seifa still needs to be brought. Who's going to bring it? Where that money come from? Make a collection, put up a GoFundMe, and say we need to raise money until we get a new Kohen Gadol who's going to do this. And then, also skipping the parentheses, his kiddush today ba mi trumas halishka, and then at some later stage, they decided that it should come from the Trumas Halishka, that it shouldn't be left to the community to supply this. It should be able to come from the Trumas Halishka, that was taken into account, that the Beis Din had reserved, the Beis Hamikdash had reserved funding for it. So that's the 2 stages of the din, according to Rabbi Shimon. Meaning Rabbi Shimon holds mid'oraisa, it should always come from the tzibur, meaning that they should raise money from it. The takana was that money is not raised each time it's necessary, but it's raised in general. It comes in general, and at some point in time, there were Yoshim that were responsible for it, meaning that they were responsible. That was the way that it came in Shel Tzibur. And later on, it was taken on back. It was taken on again by the Beis Hamikdash. If you read it with the parentheses, which might work better with the with the Gemara in Menachos, it comes out that there were two stages of the Gzera. Stage number one of the Gzera, or the Takana, Mida Araisa, everybody agrees that it should be Mishal Tzibur. At some point in time, this was difficult for the Tzibur to maintain. Why? Because in the days of the second Beis Hamikdash, there were often many Kohanim Gedolim. And because of the fact that in any one given year, and because there was a gap, meaning you had a Kohen Gadol and then he died because Yom Kippur, not Yom Kippur, whatever the case is, he died, and then they had to make another Kohen Gadol. That took time. There was politicking and there was fighting and there was whatever it was. During that period of time, there were maybe weeks or months that they didn't have a Kohen Gadol. And then the Tzibur had to, there was a lot of money that starts to add up. To bring the Mincha of the Kohen Gadol, Mishal Tzibur, became very, very difficult. So what they did is they made it that, you want to be the Kohen Gadol, no problem. Just know if you die, your Yarshim are going to have to pay for this until we get another Kohen Gadol. And then the next stage of the Gzera is that the Yarshim stopped being interested in doing this. They said, if our father died, we're not interested in doing this anymore. And then there was no minchas, there was no mincha brought to the Kohen Gadol every day. And then the community took it back on again. Those, according to the Gemara Menachos, that's how it works out. But either way, which way, that is the understanding of how to explain the two different dinim that Rabbi Shimon seems to say, as either it's Mishal Yarshim or Mishal Tzibur. Says the Gemara going further. Rabbi Yosa Amar Rabbi Yochanan Bai. Rabbi Yosa, and then Rabbi Yochanan asked the following question: Mahu, what is the din? What is the din that's called Shleima B'Shachris or Shleima Ben Arbaim? That it has to be whole in the morning and whole in the afternoon. Meaning, we had said that this Minchas Chavitin needs to be brought in the morning and in the evening, but in the case that there's no Kohen Gadol, it's a Shleima. So Shleima B'Shachris or Shleima Ben Arbaim, that it have to be a whole Isaron in the morning and a whole Isaron in the evening, or alternatively, or Shleima B'Shachris U'Betela Ben Arbaim. Or did they bring it just once a day? Meaning, while there's no Kohen Gadol, the Asur Seifa is not split into two. So, does that mean that it is double the amount? Or does that mean it's just once that's brought every morning? Says the Gemara, yeah, but it should have been simple. Should be simple to explain that this is called a Minchas Tamid. Minchas Tamid means that it has to be always, continuously, like other things that are called Tamid, like the Korban Tamid, which is brought twice a day. This also has to be brought twice a day. So it seems to be that until there is another Kohen Gadol, there is a double Asur Seifa. It's Shlema in the morning and Shlema in the afternoon. And then the Gemara says, okay, meaning following along, if you want to say that that's what happens, that it is a whole Isaron in the morning, a whole Isaron in the afternoon, what about the stuff that goes with it? Meaning, the Shloishes Lugin Mahin. Is this the 3 Lugin of oil that goes with this Minchas Chavitin? So, usually he splits it in 2. He has 1.5 Lugin in the morning, 1.5 Lugin in the afternoon. But if you bring Asur Seifa in the morning and in the afternoon, so does that mean that you need 3 Lugin with each of them? Or the 3 Lugin is independent that you only bring once? Says the Gemara, do we say it's 3 Lugin in the morning, 3 Lugin in the afternoon? Or alternatively, you still split it, the half a lug in one direction and the other. Meaning, it's still only 3 Lugin of oil. Says Chizkiah, I've got another question to add to the list. Now that we're adding these questions, something else to add. What about the Shnei Kumtzin? The Shnei Kumtzin of Levina. That's his opinion. That's not unanimous. Some other Shittas hold that it was not Shnei Kumtzin, but it was half. It was a full kometz, scoop of Levina that was split into 2. But the way that Rabbi Chizkiah is asking the question is als his shita, but the question would apply to everybody. Does the Levina get split, or does the Levina still stay? Oh, does the Levina get doubled? Says the Gemara, Shnei kumtzin b'shachar, Shnei kumtzin ben arbaim. Or kometz echad b'shachar, kometz echad ben arbaim. Do you have 1 kometz in the morning, 1 kometz in the afternoon, or do you need 2 for each one? Says the Gemara, now trying to answer all of these questions. Amar Rabbi Yosa, says Rabbi Yosa, klum lamdu lekometz loy mi minchas chayta. Did we not learn this whole din of kometz from minchas chayta? mean, the reason that we know that the kohen has to bring has to bring the kmitza of this levana. Do we learn from anywhere else other than the din of minchas chayta? And now there's two ways of reading the next line. Ma lahala and shnei kumtzin, afkan shnei kumtzin. Just like there, it's two kumtzin, so to here it is two kumtzin. Okay, so two ways of learning this. Does that mean that this is one karban, and the same way that the minchas chayta has these two kumtzin, and that's just how it goes. This is one karban split in two, but two kumtzin still applies. Or alternatively, what we learn from the minchas chayta is that when you have an isaron, you need shnei kumtzin, and therefore, anytime that you have an isaron, you need two kumtzin, and that's what we're learning here. Meaning, did this answer the question, or did this not answer the question? And that's machlokes in how to read this. And that would be account for the parentheses here as well. And if you're going to read it as we have a question about a larger minchas chayta, we'd have the same question here, which is the parentheses. If you have a question there, you have a question here. Both places you have the question, or alternatively, we have an answer to the question. That's always going to be shnei kumtzin. So to here, it's always going to be shnei kumtzin. You don't double it. Okay. Amar Rabbi Chizkiya says, Rabbi Chizkiya, klum lam shlosh lugin loy mitam shel ben arbaim. What about the shlosh lugin? Didn't we learn that from the din of tam shel ben arbaim? Ma lahal shlosh lugin, afkan shlosh lugin. Just like there's three lugin, so to here it's three lugin. And then the question here, everybody agrees what the question is. Just like there, you need, just like there, you have a question. What happens if it was bigger? So to here, you have the question if it is bigger, meaning we don't have a resolution to the question of what happens when the Kohen Gadol dies with regards to the Levana and the Shloshes Lugin. Okay. And then the Mishnah told us the next din is Shaloi Yehei. This din of Shaloi Yeh. So with the Shaloi Yeh that there shouldn't be Me'ilah by the offer of the Paraduma. Rabbi Shimon bar Nachman b'shem Rabbi Yochanan says Rabbi Shimon bar Nachman in the name of Rabbi Yochanan bedin hu she'imaluba ve'hein gazru shelo yimaluba. I don't understand. Badin hu shimaluba. It seems, according to the Mishnah, that midaraisa, that the paraduma ashes should be chayv in meila. That if you use it inappropriately, you'd be chayv for that. Ve'hein gazru shelo yimaluba. And then the Chacham came along and they said, no, there's no more meila here, which means that they under the din daraisa. Vatani, didn't we learn in a brisa with regards to the word chatas he, with regards to the paraduma, the waters of the paraduma is called Ephra Chatas. The Ephra Chatas is the ashes, Mer Chatas is the waters. And from the fact that the paraduma is called Chatas, Melamed Shemalim, but you learn from this that there is Me'ilah in it because it's called a Chatas. Ba Ma'alim, says the Gemara will explain, Ba Ma'alim ve'ein, and this is going to be the question I mentioned, Ba Ma'alim ve'ein Ma'alim Afra. With it, meaning the paraduma itself, you could be violating Me'ilah, but you cannot violate the Isra of Me'ilah with the Ephra of the paraduma, which means that our Mishnah doesn't make sense, because our Mishnah says that the Chachamim came along and they were good, that it wasn't that you don't have Me'ilah, but that's the Din Daraisa. So what did the Chachamim add to this? Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Abau, Barishayna hayu mishtak shekin ba v'noisem asal gabi makasem. Says Rabbi Abau, once upon a time, meaning in the early days, they would be, it's a hard word to translate. Does it mean that they would mix it, mix it in some kind of paste, or they would use it for things that were not for Tum and Tara purposes, or alternatively, they would fight with each other to see who was going to use the Ephra Paraduma, and then they, in however you want to slice it, they would end up like getting bruised as a result of this, or whenever they got bruised or whenever they had wounds, the Kohanim would use, or people, not just Kohanim, they would use the Para Aduma ashes on their makusem for their wounds, meaning that people would come and they would say, I need Ephra Para Aduma, and they would sprinkle it on them, and that would provide them with a refuah. Either they thought it did or it actually did, but people would use it not just for Tumah and Tara purposes. There were people that wanted to do it, meaning this is if we can remove tumas mace, so this could remove any kind of problem that I have in my life. So they would come and they would use it. Gazru and the Chachamim made exerishi malaba that there was meila that applied to it. If you don't need it for tumah and tara purposes, you're not allowed to use it. And then keva and she nigduru gzerish shelo malaba, gazru shelo malaba. And then when they saw Shenigdaru, which seems to mean there's two ways of reading, but the Pashtus is Shenigdaru is that people stopped coming when they weren't sure if they needed it for Tumantara purposes. So they would stay Tameh until they knew for sure, meaning until they knew that they were for sure Tameh. So anytime that anybody had a Safik Tumah space, they would not be they would not come to have the Efer Paraduma put on them because they were concerned about the Sis Me'ila. The Chacham said if people aren't going to come to be Tahar, then they removed the Gzera. Or alternatively, once they saw that people had stopped using it as like some kind of other remedy, then they returned back to the original case, probably because they wanted to make sure that people were not scared of becoming tahar. And then the final din of our Mishnah that the Gemara is going to discuss here is the din of kinim. So the Gemara asks the question, what happens if these kinim are found, if you randomly found kinim, these birds, that they were brought as an oila. So those birds might have been a chatas, might have been an oila, but they're used as an oila. What happens to this woman that needed these birds in order to achieve kapara? How's it going to work if her korbanos were never brought? Says the Gemara, Ha'isha azois b'mahi mis kaperes. The woman that wanted to bring this, how is she going to be like a yoledes, right? How is she going to become tahara? How is she going to have kapara? Amar Rabbi Yitzchak says, Rabbi Yitzchak Tanai Basin, this is the same din that we've seen a number of times. There was a condition that the Basin made. Anytime that anybody came to bring a pair of birds, they also donated money that went for psulus and uvdas. There was extra funding built in conditionally that if anything went wrong with your korban, there was a backup. Okay, and we finished the parak Maus Nimsu, which is the 7th parak, and we are going on to the 8th parak with a Mishnah that is going to be detailing other things that are found in Yerushalayim. And for those that were with us during Maseches Psachim, you will see many of these din. This Mishnah was quoted a number of times throughout Maseches Psachim, and there it was complicated out of context. Here we will see that, please God, it's a little bit easier to understand in context. Says the Mishnah as follows: any spit that is found in Yerushalayim is going to be tahar. Now, where's this coming from? The din is that a zava that spits, their spit is also going to be tameh. So if a person slips on somebody sneezes, whatever it is, and like it lands on something, and then the guy runs away, and then you put your hand there, like, do you become tameh? What happens? Any spit that is found in Yerushalayim is assumed to be tahar, except for the upper market. Divrei Meir, this is the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Now, in the Gemara, we're going to describe why exactly the Sheka Elyon is different. We'll get there. Rabbi Yossi says, Bishar kol yimei shana sheba emtza tmeim shebitzdadim tahar. All other days of the year, spit that's found in the middle of the road is considered to be tameh. But if it's found on the sides of the road, it's going to be tahar. B'shas haregel, and during the times of the Yom Tovim, when everybody became a little regel, the stuff that's the spit that's in the middle of the road is considered to be tahar. And if it's found on the sides of the road, it's going to be tameh. Because in general, the rule is that if you're moving against traffic or you're not part of the basic traffic, you go to the sides. Because in order to maintain Tumantara, anybody that was tahar would stay away from the people that were tameh. So during the rest of the year, there's tameh, the tamim are walking around Yerushalayim. But during the regel, everybody was trying really hard to be tahar, which meant that everybody in the middle of the street was tahar because that was the majority, and the people that were tameh were pushed to the sides. They were told, no, tameh people on the outsides. But during the rest of the year, they probably didn't have such a requirement, so tameh people walked through the streets, and tahar people had like a special lane on the sides. And that's why it would be different where you found the spit. Says the Gemara, Kol HaKelim, other things that I found. After we're speaking about limbs of animals and spit, now we're going to talk about Kelim. Kol HaKelim, Yerushalayim, any vessels that are found in Yerushalayim, Derech Yerida Beis HaTefillah Tmeim. If it's found on the staircase on the way down to the Beis HaTefillah, to a mikveh, tmim, it's going to be tamei. V'derech aliyah tarim. And the way, if it's found on the way up, it's tar. Now, question: how do you know if it's on the stairs? Is it that was on the way up or on the way out and down? Says the Gemara, no. It says the Mishnah, shaloiki read some aliyah, because they had different staircases. You had one staircase going down and another staircase going up, just like fiddle on the roof. But this was not to be a rich man. This was to ensure that tummy things and Torah things didn't touch each other. So if you had tummy or you had kelim that were tamim, you went down on the tummy side. And if it was on the Torah side, that would be good. Divrei Meir, this is the opinion of Reb Meir. Anybody that has seen the excavations of certain mikvahs in Yerushalayim, you see that there is a dividing row of stones in between. So that's the din. Divrei Meir, Rabbi Yossi says, Kulam taharim. You can assume that all of them are tahar. All of them are going to be tahar. Chutz min hasal v'ha magrefa v'ha maritza hamiyuchadim likvaris. Except for a basket, and magrefa is a shovel, and a maritza is a hammer. All of these things that are used for digging graves. If it's a grave digger's tool, you assume that it's tamei, no matter what. But other kelim in Yerushalayim, you assume are going to be tahar. Sakin, what about a knife? This was the din that we saw in Maseches Pesachim. Sakin, with regards to an ashenim seviyadala that you found on the 14th of Nisan, shechid b'miyad, you can use that to shecht immediately. You assume that it's for sure going to be tahar. B'shloisa also, if it is the 13th of Nisan, shen umakbil, you have to go and dunk it again, tovel it again, because you assume that it hasn't yet been toveled. What about a kupitz, a meat cleaver? This was the din that we discussed in Pesachim with regards to whether or not you were offering other korbanos that you were allowed to break the bones of. The Korban Pesach you cannot break the bones of. So the kupitz was a meat cleaver, or like a big knife, not for shchita, but was there for chopping up bones. So kupitz was there shonim apil. You would have to tovel it regardless of what day you found it on, because you are assuming nobody needs their kupitz. Chal arba asali is for Shabbos. If the 14th of Nisan fell out on Shabbos, shechet b'miyad, you can shecht it immediately. Meaning, because we assume that the Balaam had already dunked it in the mikveh, and then turn to Chaf Aleph Amud Beis Betes Vav. If it fell out on Betes Vav, if it is on the 15th, shech b'miyad, you can check with it immediately. In both of those cases, Vidal and Tesvav. Nimtza kshur l'sakin, and if you found a meat cleaver that was tied to a knife, harei kisakin, we assume that it has the same din of the knife because it was probably toveled together with the knife. Meaning, if it's on the same keyring, we assume that it was connected. Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, we'll continue with Chaf Aleph Amud Beis, wrapping up our the next few days of Maseches Shekalim. And Be'ez Hashem, everybody should have a wonderful day and a Shavua Tov U'Mavarach. It should be brachas for us and for all of Klal Yisrael. Have a beautiful evening.